Hey, I want to talk about trauma, how I dealt with it, and how I ignored it, and how it gets worse the longer time goes on. You don't even know that you are experiencing anxiety or PTSD or anything like that. In March of '76, um, I was arrested in Naples, Italy for drug trafficking. Myself and two other guys from my ship. We were arrested in Naples, Italy. Italian government issued warrants for our arrest. And when you're international waters, it's international law, and the United States has to comply with international law. So they turned us over to them, us three. Unbeknownst to us, when we were turned over to Italian government, there were 14 other Americans that were also included in what they called the Sixth Fleet drug ring. Now, I had no idea how I got there. Not only that I had no idea, the other two guys from my ship, Monty and Potts, had no idea. Now, we didn't know why we were being arrested, but we didn't know why we were there. We were there because we partied with Haber and Nolan. We smoked hash. This was like almost like a two a week, 2 or 3 weekends a month that they lived off ship. That was the party house. They were the two guys that were on our ship, worked in engineering with Monty and Potts. Um, they were arrested, and we all knew about that. You know, we all heard about it. They were arrested by Italian government. They lived off ship, so what people do off ship, I mean, we're just not privy to because we're on the ship every day. Anyway, um, we were arrested and we turned over to the Italian government. I mean, when we arrived, like they don't take you don't go to it's not like in America. It's like you get arrested at a precinct and you go to the precinct and then you go to county. No, you go straight to the prison. So we were all shipped off to this 100-year-old Italian prison called Porge Real. Still exists today. To tell you how my trauma works, I've gone back and looked at pictures even as early as this year of the same place, different views of it. So I still know I still feel the trauma from being there. I mean, I remember everything about the place. I remember the first day we got there. I know that when we got there, and I know it's like they had chicken wire on the decks for the first level. When we got there, the Italians were throwing eggs and tomatoes at us, yelling "Yankee dog" and Americans go home and all this stuff. So like we were naturally scared. There's like we're in an Italian prison and there's this long rows of cells and people and there's like about 14 of us and 200 of them and they're calling us it's yelling Yankee dog and throwing tomatoes and eggs at us through the chicken wire. We were scared. Let's not get. I mean, we were terrified. We were scared. We were terrified. Anyway, like we get to our, so they put us in this big cell, big room where we were all there, and the only thing we thought about that night was like, oh my God, like what's gonna happen? Of course we don't. I mean, we're in Italian prison. What the hell are you supposed to? I'm laughing now, but it wasn't funny at the time. It's funny when I think about how we felt and how scared we were. Anyway, like that morning, the when they served us breakfast, if you want to call it that. Breakfast there 7 days a week was one roll and a bowl of sweet milk. Breakfast. Lunch was one roll and a bowl of soup broth. 5 days a week we got a thigh and a drumstick for dinner. Then we on Fridays they would give you fish. The other they served us some meat. I can only assume maybe it was beef. I don't know what it was, but You're going to eat what you're given, especially when you're hungry. Anyway, so we were arrested. This was in March. We, I think we went from March till August before we saw anybody after our arrest in the Italian government. Now, my first lieutenant came up once a month, and they would put the money on our books, which was only $20 per man, because when you're arrested like that, it's considered dead time. Dead time pay is $20 a month in the military. So he would come once a month to do that, and I think there was even one month because the bed bugs in this prison were horrible. They didn't come down. It wasn't like two or three bed bugs. They came down like armies. You could see them coming down the walls. They'd be on the ceilings. They feel your heat and they drop on you. And this is something. This was really a tough. This is really tough. I mean, to the point to where we had, if you didn't want to get chewed up at night, you would stay up at night and sleep during the day. Anyway, like went from March until August before we saw any anybody from the Italian government. In August, they started interrogating us. When they brought me in, they brought up a couple of people's names, and they kept asking me like for this was like old school. If you want to envision like you see the old movies, and they got the guys at the table, and the police and the DA is standing around the table, and they got the light above, and they're shining on you, and they're questioning you like hard time. I mean, it was like it felt like a 1940s question. But the thing is, I didn't know the guy. They kept saying, I know. They kept saying, you know Caesar, you know Caesar. And I'm like, no, I don't. And they would come find it was a black guy named Caesar that was in the army, but I didn't know him. I didn't know none of it was only myself, Monty and Potts. We were the only Navy guys. Everybody else was Army. We didn't know any of those people. We knew Haber and Nolan. And Haber and Nolan told the Italian government a really good story for them to get sent home back to the United States, and then 2 weeks later for the Italians to arrest 17 of us and call us the Sixth Fleet Drug Ring. When so now still like of course now we're all there. Nobody's really trusting anyone. And I mean the thing is like I ended up trusting the guys on my ship because I knew like I didn't know them before we got arrested. Even though we both of the three of us knew Haber and Nolan, we were never there at the same time at their homes at the same time partying. So I didn't know them. I think I knew Monty. I didn't know Potts at all. And at any rate, like so, we go get interrogated in August, and they're asking me did I know this guy Caesar? No, I don't. They went on for a half an hour. Then they started on some other name which I can't remember. And I didn't know that person either. I mean, I didn't know anybody there. That was the thing. Um, didn't know anybody there. So I couldn't give them the answers they were looking for because I didn't know the people. Anyway, this happened in August. Then in October, they came around and they called seven of us to go home. They were being released, which I was one of the seven. And of course, the seven of us that were released, we didn't know anybody. This is the thing. We were what you would call residual damage. Anyway, so we didn't know anybody, but we were glad to be released, of course. And we were, and I mean, went back. To, we were picked up. We were dropped off. They took us to the base, to the naval base, and the next morning we were on flights back to the United States. We, the three of us, myself, Monty, and Potts, we ended up in the naval base in Philadelphia. That's where we spent our last 6 weeks of 6 to 7 weeks of military duty there. During that time, when we talking to the naval lawyers, they came and they talked to us and they told us that you can stay in the service, no problem, because we weren't convicted. You can stay in the service, or you can have what we call a convenience of the government discharge, which would be based on your military record as it stands. Well, you gotta look at the thing was we all took that for two reasons. One, not to take a chance on what the Italian government may do later, but the other part was we were angry at the Navy, the U.S. military period. We were angry because of the fact that we felt we weren't being represented because we didn't know anybody. We didn't know anybody. I mean, it wasn't like, people say it all the time, oh, no, I didn't do that. I wasn't, no, we didn't know anybody. We didn't traffic drugs. But this gets to the part of the accountability. We went to Haber and Nolan's house to party on a regular basis. It didn't have to be every weekend. We were there regular enough to where we were in that Haber and Nolan circle. So when they got busted for whatever they did or which I still don't know because we weren't privy to that. They did a really good job of selling the Italian government to go arrest another 17 Americans and let them go home. Whatever they told them was they ate it up, and I don't know if it was because they were able to make more had 17 people and let these two go. I don't know the circumstances of that. Just don't know. Um, Also, we don't know. I didn't know what was going to happen with the Italian government or with the U.S. government. I mean, at this time, you guys, you know that we were feeling railroaded at the time, but we weren't being accountable for the fact that we were smoking hash and partying at the dope house. See, this is the thing that we would like. Everybody wants to say, like, I want to say that. Oh, I didn't know anybody, but no, but I partied at the dope house. That's you want to call it that, or at the party house, or whatever you want to call it. I was in the circle, and this is how you get connected in things by being in the damn circle. They don't. You're not going to get rounded up for something illegal if you're not part of that. I'm sorry. Very rarely does that happen. When people are arrested, they are involved, whether it's a little bit or a lot. And this is what I had to wrestle with, besides everything, throughout my whole life. It's like, am I really going to keep on insisting that I had no culpability? No, you can't. You have to accept that first. That's part of your trauma. Part of your trauma is being accountable for your actions. You can't get to the next stage unless you go ahead and accept the fact that if I hadn't done A, B wouldn't have happened. And this is the thing that we have. And that's the biggest thing that you have to do to get over the trauma, because you can't continue to lie to yourself and think that you're going to find truth. This doesn't work like that. Anyway, so we get back. I take the convenience of the government discharge. Of course, it's based on my military record. I had a perfect record. I mean, I was felt I was the perfect soldier, other than my drug use, which got me in trouble. Now, once I was out of the service and and I was at home, and and trying to resettle and uh, readjust back into society, as they say. Which was a society? It's basically around your friends, your family, and everything else. Well, my second part of my trauma came because as I said at the beginning, I was from a military family. So no matter what I said about my arrest, it made no difference to my family because I fucked up. I went in the service and I got in trouble. So I had the trauma of being arrested, being in an Italian prison, and then coming home and being a pariah to my family. And some of that even exists to the day. I have some family that we don't talk to, that I don't talk to this day, and they don't talk to me. Really has a lot to do with that because it and this is the thing that we all like. You struggle with all these things. Those are just a couple things. But what the thing is, you don't realize how traumatized you actually were. And I never looked at the being in Italian prison as being something that really traumatized me because I felt I was stronger and was above that. And there were guys in there that were cracking up. I say it was 17 of us. There were 3 or 4 guys that really cracked up. And as I look back on it now, or as I got, the further I got away from it, I had to have to only believe they cracked up because they had more culpability. They were in more fear than I was. My biggest fear was like, when am I going to get out of here? Because I had no culpability. There was nothing. I mean, it wasn't like I was arrested with drugs. We were arrested 3 weeks to a month later based on statements. Anyway, I didn't feel I was never what's the word? I was worried, but I wasn't feeling downtrodden because I didn't do anything. I didn't think there was, but at the same time, you're in an Italian prison. You're in foreign prison, so you are scared. Not scared of, and I don't know why I laugh about it. You're not scared so much of where you are. You're scared if you're ever going to get home. This is the thing about you go to a foreign prison, you don't know. You just have no. And like as I mentioned before, we went from March to August before we talked to any Italian authorities whatsoever. So we were arrested, didn't talk to anybody about our case until August. So that's even more every day on pins and needles. Like, when are they going to talk to us? What's going on here? What is, like, what are my actual charges and the whole nine? So that was the trauma. But I came home and I felt like I was ready to, to readjust in society and settle into being home. I went back to school, got an apartment, bought a little car, and uh, went on to readjusting and get back, and finally getting back into my life. But what I didn't realize or understand was how those events were still traumatizing me. Not really, was still, those lingering thoughts were still in the middle of my mind. They weren't to the back of my mind. They weren't a distant memory. They were a present memory. But I didn't see it that way. Of course, I thought about the stuff, this and that, but when you're young, for some reason we think we're super. We're not super people. And of course, we find that out as we get older, but you feel that way when you're young. So I just blustered through everything. And, then you realize you have problems at your job, you have problems in your relationship, you have problems with your family, and you still don't know what's going on. You still haven't attributed it to yourself. It's just like, okay, to hell with them. That, well, I'm moving on. I don't have to mess with them. So what? Don't bother me. Oh well, get the hell out of here. And I went immediately to anger as opposed to looking at the cause. And as the years passed, I mean, like in 1982, um, I was hospitalized at the VA hospital because of double vision and migraines. Yeah, I mean, mind you, at that time, I'm only like 26, 27 years old, and I'm experiencing migraines. So I was hospitalized for a week there, and they gave me a diagnosis. And of course, when you go, I had return stuff that I had to do. I had to come back, which I never did. I feel like, okay, I'm out of here. I feel good. I went back to work, went about my life, thinking that, okay, let me go. But see, this is the thing about the VA hospital as opposed to a private doctor. The VA has years and years of experience of dealing with traumatized and damaged veterans. They have their whole service formula is built around that. That's the difference from having a private doctor who doesn't deal with veterans. There's a big difference. It's like I equate it with this. You have criminals and you have the cops. The reason cops are able to catch the criminals because they have hundreds of years of criminal diagnosis. They know they have comparative information and facts that lead to that. It's the same thing in the VA. They've dealt with veterans who've been physically injured and mentally injured for the duration of the VA. That's what they do. So they have the biggest opportunity to help you. I'm not saying don't use a personal or private doctor. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is use the VA doctors as well. If you're experiencing problems, whether they're physical or mental, and you take it to your private doctor, but also take that to a VA doctor, they're going to have more information to give you more information, more to think about. But because in my 20s and 30s, I didn't follow up because I was still feeling super and I didn't follow up with anything. Well, this stuff just keeps lingering. It keeps getting worse. As you don't realize it, but it gets worse. It's a thing where when I come home, I got to check my house completely before I'm able to sit down and relax. If I'm gone for hours away from my home, I do that. Uh, if I'm on, if I'm somewhere in public and somebody makes a threatening statement or acts aggressively, I become triggered. I immediately like start sizing that person up and I start looking for what's my next course of action. Well, these things are not like these triggers that come about are not normal. We accept them as normal because we say, oh, this is who I am. I am. No, you're experiencing mental trauma. This is why where the VA becomes even more helpful. It took me from 1982, from my first diagnosis of mental trauma, to 2024 before I actually got VA disability and started getting help. Actually, I started getting help in 2022. I started seeing therapists. I started doing the VA therapy programs with other veterans, and which is like I associate that with networking, which really helped because now you're talking about what is going on, with you with other people who have like situations similar to yours. And that really helped. And it's something I even continue to this day, even though I'm doing a lot better, but I know that I'm not doing great. And I mean by great, not doing great, is like I still feel a need to network with veterans, to work with veterans, to use the veterans hospital, use my veterans doctors, use the therapy. I still do that even now, even though I feel much better. I'm doing much better, but I still do that. And the point I'm trying to make is that you have to, as a veteran, if you experienced any trauma, whether it was like a sexual abuse, whether it was like a situation like mine where I was in a foreign prison, whether it was uh, where you were being bullied, whatever it might have been, any type of trauma that you experienced in the military, you have doctors there to help assist you through it. And it's not saying we all don't need that. No, we all, even some that's experiencing trauma, we all don't need that. Or we all find other ways to deal with it. And this is the only thing where I'm saying is by using the VA healthcare system, you'll be able to talk with people who have problems that are similar to what you've experienced. They were in the military. They've had, whether it was on battle, whether it was from uh, just the artillery, whether it was sexual trauma, but these people experience that, and the VA has all, not just their records. They have hundreds of years of stuff to help assist you. So take advantage of it. Thank you.